Welcome back to the Leadership Series. Thank you, Mrs. Leonie Gabriel, for joining us. Leonie and I go back quite a few years. Let's not do the math, but we go back quite a few years to our pre-leadership journey. So I'm really interested to hear how life has taken its twists and turns with what you've brought on. So firstly, if I could get you just to introduce yourself, a little bit about your background and a little bit about your leadership journey, please.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. This is a bit nerve-wracking, but fun and weird and all the good things. My leadership journey. So my background is in early childhood, so not-for-profit organisations. So I worked for councils initially when I first did my training, as you say, way back when. And I was very young and raw and, all of those things.
You're still young.
Green, we're all green. So yes, I did my TAFE qualification and worked in a council centre and a TAFE centre before I found a beautiful community-based organisation in Western Sydney, where I spent the next 21 years managing a little group of community-based preschools and occasional care. And one of those we turned into long day care in that process as well. So 21 years with the one company was a really long time.
Wow.
And I shouldn't say company, I should say organisation. So community-based and not-for-profit's definitely my passion. And how I ended up staying there for that amount of time was just that sort of ethical approach of, children not as commodities, all that kind of stuff. And that sort of developed as we went along through the leadership journey. So I had a number of different teams. So initially a very small team of just 3 of us. And then as the organisation changed a little bit and things sort of moved along and we progressed, I ended up with a team of around 16 to 20 at any point in time. So early childhood's very flexible and very family oriented. It is extremely regulated. I don't think people understand how regulated our, well, maybe they do now with lots that's going on in our sector, which is a bit, let's not talk about that. Mm-hmm. But I think the regulation and compliance side of thing is where the leadership was always a little bit challenging because you're balancing that. And I look, lots of sectors are the same, I guess, but I think that jumping between caring for little people, looking after your team that do that, keeping their families happy, the kind of leadership of it changes, whoever you're working with at that point in time. And then I didn't actually do my university qualifications till I was nearly 40. And that sort of just came about, again, just maybe from a part of our sector that we were getting regulated again, another big, we actually came under the education portfolio rather than like healthcare and community services. So that happened in like 2009. So a few of us all went, oh gosh, should we go and get our quals, like higher ed stuff? So we did, which was great. And I think that's where I really picked up again on somewhere my leadership needed to go somewhere else, because I had a lot of these, I'd say kids, and that's terrible, these young, mostly women, doing this course with me, and I was just training them. I was mentoring them. I was guiding them. We were doing group work, and I just sort of sit there and go, oh gosh, this leadership, it just doesn't stop. This leadership thing it's just there innately. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing all those years. Then we moved down here to Victoria. So I currently live in Melbourne. We've been here 8 years. And not long before we did that, I decided to crack into the tertiary side of things and start teaching people what I knew. So I've been with Victoria University down here for 6 years, teaching in their TAFE, one TAFE department, which I love. Had a little dabble in the higher ed stuff, but I didn't quite enjoy it. I like the grassroots because there's more leadership stuff in it. Funny enough, there you go.
There's a common theme coming through.
There is a common theme. Yep.
Beautiful. Well, what's one thing you wish somebody had told you before you became a leader?
You can't keep everyone happy.
So true.
You want to and you think you have to, but you can't, because everyone has a different happy. Everybody has a different form of what they believe their happy is, and in and around their career, that's a really tricky thing to do when we've got 3 different levels of qualifications in early childhood. So you've got your Cert 3 grassroots stuff, the diploma trained, which is just up on that again, that's a 2-year qualification, and then your bachelor, which is a 3 or 4 year into your masters and whatnot. And there's diplomas of management thing you pick up along the way and whatnot. But when you've got those three very different qualifications, trying to keep your teams happy is not the goal at the end of the day. And it probably goes into the other question that you gave me, which is about what are your mistakes that are gifts. Sorry, I'm going to bluff them together. I told you I'd do this to you.
That's all right.
I think once I realised those things early on, I went, all right, I think they were the hard parts of leadership, having to keep people on an even keel, but then we weren't always on an even keel either. So that was always a little bit tricky. I guess, funny story, we went to a wedding, one of my team, and I'll call her out, Tash. If she ever watches this, she'll love it. Tash and I banged heads a lot. Tash was a little bit younger, but she was very determined, and I loved her work ethic, and she was, I'm going to challenge you every step of the way. So she taught me a lot about leadership in what it looks like to have somebody challenge you and ask lots of questions. And a lot of our team, and I do say our team because I do see myself as part of that team rather than the leader all the time, but a couple of them would say all the time, oh, Tash is pushing the buttons again. She always asks the big questions, doesn't she? And I'd go, yeah, but I like it. I like that she's challenging. She's stepping out of the scope of what we've always believed we're, just nice old ladies that look after children. We're at her wedding. I got a beautiful invitation to go to her wedding, and her husband said to me at the end of the night after a few beers, can you just give her what she wants? Because when she comes home from work and you've told her no, or you've told her to research something rather than just give it to her, I've got to listen to it all the time. I go, Brad, I love you, but no. No, that's not my job. My job's not to keep her happy.
That's it.
But I guess that the answer to that one is probably you can't keep everybody happy, but you've got to maintain that camaraderie and sense of people wanting to come to work every day.
And it's not easy.
No, it's bloody hard.
It is bloody hard.
Especially with women. I've met women in my whole life.
That's it. Yeah, a lot of women in your journey.
Yeah, and as I say, that saying of they're just nice old ladies. When we came under the education portfolio, things really changed. People started going, oh, these are people with qualifications and really good skills, and so that was nice.
Yeah, good.
Anyway, there you go.
Well overlooked. Awesome.
Yep.
Do you remember that moment where you did go, I am in charge? What stands out?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think because I was young and I was working with women that were older than me and women that had children, I think I had that kind of little bit of a stigma there where, well, I'm not a mother yet. How do I know what I'm doing? And sometimes that was there. But I had the two most beautiful women to start off with, three actually. One was a casual who's still a very, very good friend of mine. They just had my back. But I remember a parent once, this is back in the day where we were manually calculating children's fees. So the parents would come in, use occasional care, a couple of hours here and there, and I would sit there with my little calculator and I'd do my little calculation and I'd say, this is what you owe me, and they'd pay me and they'd leave. And this parent absolutely ripped shreds off me because I had got it wrong. That's not what I paid last week. And I'm like, shit, what have I done? And I remember one of my colleagues, Judith, came in and she goes, it's all right, don't worry, I'll help you out. She showed me how to do it. And all I could think all afternoon was, but I should have known how to do that. Like, I'm the boss, that I shouldn't have been rescued by somebody else. But I guess that also brings that teamwork thing together as well. And we're one of, I think that was my first aha moment of, oh, I need to be better if I'm going to do this job. I need to learn a little bit quicker on my feet, maybe. That's probably the first thing that I think of where I went, oh God, now I am the boss. This is scary. Team meetings. I remember running my first team meetings. And I kept thinking, this is too easy. Why does this feel so casual and nice? And until I got a big team, and that was another thing. So quite a few years later thinking, okay, now I have to sit in a team meeting with this many opinions, take them all on board, and then go away and make those decisions as the leader. And so they're probably, some big highlights where I went down. Now I'm the boss, so now I have to do it.
Well, isn't that funny though? You've just touched on a couple of things that to me sound like you were going in there and making mistakes, but they've actually turned out to be huge gifts.
Huge gifts. And I think age, if I say what was a mistake, it wasn't a mistake. I think it was an absolute gift that I bit the bullet and went, sure, I will apply for that manager's job, even though I'd been a room leader for 5 minutes and managed 2 other people in a room, to jump in and actually run, a little centre and give it a crack. And then it ended up being the best thing I ever did. So So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, lots of little gifts. I think, do you want to ask me the gift question?
Well, yeah. I will. So what is one mistake that you've made that has turned out to be a gift?
I think it's that thinking that you have to have the solution to everything.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit like the happy thing. I think when you think you should know the answer, when somebody comes and says, hey, how do I? And I go, so sometimes it comes really easy, naturally. Like our regulations are this thick. I could tell you everything that's in there. Can't tell you where to go to find it, but I'll know what's in there, and I'll get there eventually. But the team used to come and say things, or we'd sit in those bigger team meetings and someone would sort of poem that, oh, but what are we going to do about this? And I'll go, well, what do you think we need to do about this? I was always really good at going, you tell me what you think the solution is, and then if it's not quite right, or it doesn't meet regs, or it's not compliant, or whatever, that's when I can kick in and go, well, hang on a minute, we need to do this as well. So I feel like the biggest gift that I ever got from that stuff was not knowing I always had the answer, but being able to say to them, we'll do it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really, I don't know, and I've done, plenty of management courses over the years and stuff, but I always come out of them and go, I like the leadership courses better than the management courses. And you know exactly what I mean by that. I feel like, that sort of, well, what are those leaders? You tell me about the leadership styles. Is it transformational? The one where you've got everybody working together rather than being the big bossy dude, those hierarchical ones. I think I always sort of came out of those feeling really inspired and thinking, all right, I have done this the right way. Like I didn't know what I was doing and I bluffed my way through it, but I managed to maybe do it the right way without even knowing about it, or knowing there were rules and styles, and until years later. I don't know.
You know what? It's worked.
And it sounds cocky because eventually you just work these things out as a human. But then all of a sudden someone puts a label on it and says, oh, that's a style or a rule. And you go, oh, cool.
Look at that.
Fine. But that worked really well. And look, I had really good leaders. I had two really wonderful male executive directors in that organisation who both did things really differently, but both did things in a really compassionate, caring kind of way, but also to be running a business. And, it's a community-based organisation. We were answering to a parent body initially, and then as the organisation got bigger, we went to a board and those sorts of things. And that's where I used to get really challenged because I felt like our ethical approach changed a little bit. But the leadership side of those things didn't really change until down the track. And then a third person came into that system, and I really started to notice the difference of how leadership changes in different organisations. Yeah. So that was always really interesting stuff. But the benefit of that was also they brought in more leadership management training for us. So years later, and as I got older, it was really nice. That's why I sort of say I didn't know these things existed until I went and did this training years later. You learn about Covey's habits and all those sorts of things, and you go, oh, I've done all those. Didn't know there were 7 of those things,
Been there, done that, but okay, let's go.
Yeah, I know. That's got a thing. Like, yeah. And I'd come home and talk to my husband about that, who's, he's been in sort of different, always been in leadership roles in with big organisations and big, multinational company, I guess. But he knows all this stuff. I come home and go, hey, I learned this today. And he goes, I'll get excited then. Because we really just work at different spectrums of the globe, I guess, and the world in general. But they were always pretty funny things to work out.
Isn't it funny though? You are on completely different spectrums with your lead, but the lessons and the situations are exactly the same.
Okay. How does that work?
It's life. It's just it's the way it is. And that's the thing, the solutions that your husband is probably using to solve the problems with his big multinational are exactly the same solutions you're using with your business, and it's wild.
Yeah, with a little not-for-profit sector, and then taking that into like my TAFE stuff now. So doing this TAFE teaching stuff, and by default, it's so dicky. By default, I keep ending up in these leadership spaces. I mean, I'm employed as a teacher assessor. That's what I do now, okay? But I teach management units, and I have to teach, these people when they go out, this is the kind of stuff they'll be dealing with, and these leadership stuff. But I keep just falling back into this leadership role because it's just something that's in you. I think when you've done it for a long, long time, you just sort of go, oh, that's just I've got to pull myself back a little bit and not teach my students so much, because I feel like I'm sending them out with all these great management skills and they're really not going to be in those leadership roles for quite some time. And they're really different now, like the privatisation of early childhood's, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Call faces rather than say words. And not all of it. There's some beautiful standalone private sectors services, but the industry side of early childhood is not my favourite thing. And probably another gift, actually. There's another little gift that I could probably think about that I didn't push harder, leave where I was when sometimes I felt a little bit bored. You get in that space where you think, I need something else.
Yeah.
A few times I was offered jobs with different organisations, or someone I knew was working somewhere and they'd say, hey, we've got this great role, do you want to come and have a go? I'm kind of glad I didn't jump ship into that in hindsight, because I wouldn't have ended up on the path that I'm in now, which I really love, and I see myself doing this as a ride into the sunset. Again, let's not mention our age. I can see myself teaching for another, good few years and still sharing the knowledge that I've got, getting back out and being in the sector all the time, visiting students, and that's that kind of stuff I love still. So is it leadership per se? No, but it's still there, and it just dabbles like a carrot next to me all the time.
And I think if it's, it is clearly something that comes naturally to you, so it's what people will draw out of you probably without them even realising, because that's just the way you communicate. And
when you've done it for so long, like it's, I don't know, it's really funny the way that it just falls out. Like an anecdote will just come up. One of the students will say, well, how do you deal with this? And I'll go, well, da-da-da-da-da-da. And if it's not my story, I'll tell it that, for one of my educators, like, this is what one of my teachers did, and, this is what so-and-so did on this day. And, they sort of just go, gosh, that's, and they go, how old are you? Like, you've got stories for everything. And I go, I'm pretty old. We go, back in the olden days.
In our day.
Yeah, back in the olden days. And they're like, oh, you're not that old. And I go, yeah, you'd be surprised. But that's good. That's the stuff that we can just pull back on now. And I guess, just falls out of your memories, which is nice. So, but in terms of leadership, I think it's nice that I'm able to say to people, it's not easy. It's going to be really, really tricky. It's going to be hard sometimes. And I get women my age that are in my classes sometimes, like, their kids gone, or maybe a little bit younger than us. Their kids have grown up and finished school or whatever, and they're like, you know what, I've always had this passion to be a teacher, and this is my pathway, and I'm going to head into this. And they're like, how did you get all this experience? And I go, it's the doing. It's very much, I think any leadership job's that, isn't it? It's the doing. You can read it till you're blue in the face, but till you practice it.
Exactly.
Don't know how bloody hard it is sometimes.
But we just keep doing it.
We do. What is that? Why do we do this?
I haven't quite worked it out myself either, but if you ever do, ring me. Let me know.
We'll write a book about it.
Exactly. Let's write a book. All good. Awesome. Thank you very much for that. That's been absolute gold.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.